I will reconvene this regular meeting of the Board of Lane County Commissioners Tuesday, April 15th, 2017. Welcome back to Harris Hall. You're probably wondering why I called you all in this morning. We'll continue with our regular item 12, other business. We have no other business at this point in time, so we'll go on to item 13, which is Public Works. We have before us Resolution and Order 1704-25-08 in the matter of setting a public hearing on a proposed sale of county property designated as parkland, identified as assessor's map, etc. That is all available online if you view today's agenda. And if you click on the red view material, that will give you the details of what Mr. Russell will be presenting. Good morning, Mike. Good afternoon, Mike.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Mike Russell, Lane County Parks and Animal Services Division Manager. Welcome. Mr. Williams, Commissioner Williams, sorry. The item is just a setting of a hearing. We will be doing the hearing at the joint meeting at City of Florence. This is a property that's just south of the City of Florence on Clear Lake Road, off of Clear Lake Road, 5928 Clear Lake Road. And it was designated parkland by Board Order 16-030803, and the adjacent, we went through a process of received up to 3 offers and worked through with all 3 participants and have accepted an offer from Keith Consiglio for $115,000. In order to sell the property, the board has to find it in the public interest to do so, and along with a public hearing is required as well. So this is just setting that hearing for that date, May 17th, May 17th at 10 a.m. at Florence
Center.
Event Center at 10 a.m. Florence Event Center on May 17th. Excellent. At that point, staff will have a full presentation outlining where the property is and the particulars.
Okay, very good. And it's appropriate that we would be doing that on the day that we're meeting in Florence for other agenda items. Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, we were hoping to do that in order to facilitate anybody who wishing to testify would not have to travel to Eugene, but we would be in Florence at that time, and so we're taking advantage of that opportunity.
Good idea. Thank you for that thought. Any questions or comments regarding this item? I see none, Mr. Russell, so do I have a motion? Commissioner Bozievich.
Thank you. So I'd like to move approval of Order 17 I guess actually that the order sets the hearing. Okay, correct. So move approval of the Order 1704-2508 in a matter of setting a public hearing for the proposed sale of county property designated as parkland, identified as assessor's map and tax lot number 19121200011701, and for a 10 a.m. time certain on May 17th at the Florence Event Center in Florence, Oregon.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Bozievich, seconded by Commissioner Lycan. Discussion to the motion. Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Russell. And we'll see you, I bet we'll see you before then.
If I may, Commissioner, I'd like to give a little report on, we had our first public meeting yesterday for the master plan project.
We have
just want to give just a quick update. We had over 30 folks attend. There were a mixture of general public and our Parks Master Plan Task Force, as well as Parks Advisory Committee. So a lot of folks there. It was a very productive meeting, got some good feedback, and towards the end of this, in June we'll come back with the results of this process. As you know, we're having 7 meetings over the course of the next 4 weeks. If people go to lanecounty.org/parks plan, they can find the meeting schedule there, and we're meeting next in Mapleton tomorrow night.
excellent. In Mapleton tomorrow night. At what time is that?
6 o'clock at the Mapleton High School.
At
library.
the high school in Mapleton, okay. That's just before you cross the river on the right-hand side.
Correct.
On the west side, I guess that'll be. Perfect. Well, thank you very much. Look forward to that. Anything further? Thanks for being here today, Mr. Russell. Then we'll move along to Commissioner's business announcements. Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to quickly, yesterday morning, 8 a.m., so the Associated Oregon Counties, we had a special ops conference call, and that's with the Legislative Committee getting together. And this was regarding House Bill 2122. And this is the bill that is coming out of Representative Greenlick's committee. We have some additional news today, but this is changing the structure of the CCOs. And as you know, we have a very good CCO here that has performed very well with Trillium as managing it. They're a for-profit. And I think a lot of this came out of the fact that when you had the parent company sell, you had some investors who fronted money in the very beginning did receive a return on their investment. It was reported in the local press. And for some reason, this got the ire up of Representative Greenlick. And what he has been working on has been moving CCOs to a nonprofit status. At that time, AOC was actually monitoring this, and part of the reason why is because there was intense negotiations going on between the counties and the CCOs with the his committee, and what's called the -10 amendments, and anyway, so it was monitoring. There was conversations going on. Felt like that we were moving in the right direction, and then out of the blue, he reneged on that and moved straight to the -11 amendments without any sort of public process to move it forward, which then would have opened up all sorts of loopholes. In a sense, we could have been potentially, if this were to continue moving forward and pass, you could potentially see us forced, in a sense, to then contract with a nonprofit, even though we've had great success here locally. And there has not been any sort of financial analysis done on this. And frankly, the public process as a whole, I think we were quite troubled. So yesterday, the committee, we got on the conference call. And I, first of all, want to say big thank you to Karen Gaffney. Huge thank you to Karen Gaffney and Alex Kyler. Going on the conference call, they supplied me with great information and really on the process itself. I think there could have been a potential deal done with the -10 amendments, and that's why there was the monitoring. But because of this, AOC came out with a motion to oppose 2122. Based on the information from Karen and Alex, I had not meaning to, but ended up leading the discussion, and with our colleagues from around the state, the special ops voted and was unanimous to oppose 2122 as written. And frankly, I think it really unfortunately sets things up to be very, very troubled, I think, for us, and could potentially cost significant amounts of money. But again, you don't know if a financial analysis is not done. And so that's where it is. Today I was told that it has since moved into rules. It may die there. We don't know. I'm going to suggest that right now, even there's several members of his party are not comfortable where this is going. So it may end up dying there. But I think regardless, it has very little chance in the Senate. And so, but that's where we were yesterday. And again, I can't thank Karen and Alex enough. Karen the information that she supplied was just very grateful, and it really, and because of that, the way the narrative and the conversation went, it really, even some of my colleagues who weren't sure text me later and said, wow, that information was fantastic. It really got me on board to support where we're going with this. So Special Ops voted unanimously to oppose, and I think it's the right decision. And but I wanted to provide an update on that yesterday, because they sent out the email late last week, and it was hurried, but for obvious reasons. And we'll kind of see where things go now. But I just think there's just enough legislators right now that are very uncomfortable where it's going. In the public process as a whole, I found that to be pretty troubling, and kind of reneging on conversations and instead going straight to a -11 without any sort of public hearing. I found that to be very troubling and unfortunate. And I think at the end of the day, it's not going to move. So I just want to provide an update on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Lycan. Thank you for spending the time to work on that. I read Ms. Gaffney's email from last week,
Yeah.
and it delineated the
fantastic.
pros and cons of what was being considered by Representative Greenlick and his committee. Further announcements? Well, you know, I have to do this. We passed an order this morning, Commissioner Williams, and you voted yes on this. And I want to tell you what you voted yes on. Yeah. So we each are assigned committees and liaisons. And let me get your list out here. No, so you will be the alternate to MWMC, Metropolitan Wastewater Commission, and you'll also be the alternate to Lane Council of Governments, which may be changing. Yeah. I heard a whisper about that. And then you are also going to be on the, along with Commissioner Bozovich, on the technology management team, which you had directly, personally requested, as I recall. And then you will be on the Middle Fork Willamette Watershed Council, the East Willamette Resource Conservation District, Coast Fork Willamette Watershed Council. You will be on the Fair Board. Now, I'm saying this directively because you said yes on this during the consent calendar this morning. Kind of having a bit of fun with it. And that's about it.
Well, I thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to serve in those capacities. Some of them sound really thrilling. The technology part sounds a little daunting. I'm sure that there are many staff members that will concur that I have some serious deficiencies in that area. Having said that, it can only be beneficial to me. Seriously, in the LCOG appointment, that thrills me. I had a long and great standing relationship with the Lane Council of Governments, and also served on the NARC, National Association of Regional Councils Board, as you all know. And so regionalism is a big part of who I am and what floats my boat, if you will excuse the expression. Spent Saturday up on the McKenzie, so it just seems appropriate to use a metaphor like that. But being able to work with the watersheds, that's a thrill to me. It's a great opportunity, and I thank you for those appointments.
Well, we all look forward to working with you, Commissioner Williams. Congratulations once again, and congratulations on your appointment to these committees.
Thank you.
Any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll move along to agenda team requests. Commissioner Lycan.
No, I was the one from this morning, and I think Jay mentioned.
We had two from the, yes. So, Commissioner Bozovich.
Well, I was going to ask if this is the time we should get to the executive session item that needed to be taken care of in open session.
Absolutely can. I see Mr. Clark is here.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I know nothing about the executive session item.
Oh, you weren't there, that's right.
Sorry.
So, Ms. Mokrowski, I'll ask for your judgment on that. Are we prepared to move forward on anything out of executive session? We didn't discuss any action during the executive session.
My understanding was on one item, we had to come out in a public session to make an official decision to direct legal counsel to prepare the paperwork to participate in some litigation, but we have to make that decision to participate publicly.
And this would be the appropriate time to do so. So, Commissioner Bozovich.
Thank you. So we've been requested by the coalition that's challenging the Oregon biological opinion to participate as a local government in that process, which would require us to join a nonprofit entity, Oregonians for Floodplain Protection, and also to continue to participate in the suit. So the decision for us today is to just say, yes, we do want to participate and direct legal staff to work with counsel for the coalition to draft the necessary board order and all that for next week's either consent calendar or board meeting for us to take an official vote. But we needed to, it was determined we were at the point of a decision and we needed to have the rest of this discussion in open session.
So in effect, then, this is an agenda team request to consider an order to join the litigation. Or
Yeah,
join the-
I would think so. I don't know if it needs to be a vote to direct legal counsel, or if it can just be 3 head nods to direct legal counsel to prepare the agenda item. The actual decision, I guess, will be voting in favor of the board order.
Correct, yeah.
So I guess it's a 3 head nod
3 head nods.
situation.
Any discussion to that? Commissioner Swenson, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I think that that's a good way of following up the executive session. I know Mr. Clark wasn't there, but I think it's a fair statement, as Commissioner Bozievich just mentioned, that the board did hear a discussion in executive session, and the discussion is proper to be in executive session. But then if we're going to move to make a decision, that maybe the part that we should be, following up on is what the commissioner wants us to do, and have the rest of us have an opportunity to take a look at the proposed board order and decide whether it should be approved on the consent calendar or taken off the consent calendar, if depending on what it looks like, which we'll learn about, by Thursday of this week for next week's board meeting. And if that's the direction, I think that's a fair summary of what the commissioner is asking for. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it's crafted, because it's one thing to join a coalition and it's another thing to file a lawsuit. So I'd be interested in how that's going to be structured. My understanding is that the coalition is made up primarily of people that don't want this biological opinion. They have a vested financial interest in fighting it. I have no problem with them using their rights to do what they want. I have a big problem with whether or not we should subsidize that, and whether Lane County's resources should go into it. But that's all subject to discussion once we see what the proposal is.
So to clarify, the proposal is that council will prepare a letter for consideration to be placed on, by Thursday this week, to be placed on the agenda for next Tuesday's regular board meeting.
It'd actually be a board order.
Assuming a board order. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll have to tell you, I don't know much about the process of litigation, the coalition, any of that stuff. Steve and I didn't talk about it, as Steve Ningle and I. But yeah, we'll put something together for the board to take a look at, an order, and hopefully a brief memo to kind of encapsulate what the request is and what the authority from the board would be in terms of our office participation. And
then if we do get the 3 head nods, and I'll explain, Commissioner Williams, I'll explain that to you in just 1 second. If we get the 3 head nods, then the board, each board member and the public will have an opportunity to see the content of the letter on Thursday of this week. It'll be released sometime on Thursday of this week as a part of the upcoming agenda for next Tuesday. Okay, excellent. So Commissioner Williams, what we're doing right now is under item 14B is agenda team requests. And each member of the board has an opportunity at this point in a public session to ask for an item to be considered for a future agenda. In order for the agenda team, which is typically is the chair and vice chair of the commission in conjunction with staff, set the agenda for the upcoming meetings. For the agenda team to consider it, you'd need to get 2 other commissioners to agree with you. That would be 3 head nods is the nomenclature that we use for that. So Commissioner Bozievich is asking for 3 head nods, which would mean a majority of commissioners are saying, yes, bring that forward as an agenda team request or as an agenda item.
Doesn't mean you're going to vote yes or no. It just means you're willing to have the discussion in the future.
So I should indicate with the head nod now?
If, or not. You have that option. So we are looking for 3 head nods, and sometimes it's just a wave of the hand or a yes. So it looks like you have at least 3 head nods on that to move forward with it. So is that, Mr. Mokryski, the directions there are clear? Very good. Any other agenda team requests?
I didn't know if you wanted to do anything based on Ms. Mulholland's testimony this morning. I didn't know if that's something you wanted to do or not.
I think, well, do you want to?
No, it doesn't really affect me. I think she was more focused on the Eugene urbanizable.
Oh, Ms. Mulholland. I'm sorry. I was thinking Molly. Sorry. Yes, I was going to do that one.
Okay, very good.
Then I see no other agenda team requests. I have a couple that came up this morning. We had a testimony from Mr. McMahon from the Homebuilders Association regarding a work session and consideration of asking the Eugene City Council to consider converting the inventory of available land for a residential building into parcel-specific inventory. And he gave a host of reasons for that, some of which were reiterated by board members. And so that would be a request for a work session. It's in conjunction with Envision Eugene and in conjunction with moving forward with the buildable lands.
Does it need to be a work session, or was it just a report back? Was that, I think, was the
report back is probably a better.
Well, let me weigh in on the process really quick if
Thank
I
you.
can. That particular issue, I'm trying to think if it was isolated to residential lands or employment.
residential?
Right, but whether that issue transcends both of those pieces or just the industrial. But either way, that issue's been raised by county staff through discussions with city staff, and I had a discussion with the city attorney about it a week or 2 ago. It is being looked at and addressed. In terms of process, both planning commissions, the City of Eugene Planning Commission and the County Planning Commission, are in deliberations on the whole host of issues around Envision Eugene, and that is one of them is subject to discussion. After the Planning Commission is done with their process, they'll make a recommendation to their respective elected officials, this board and the city council. And at that point, then the city council and the board has its own process, a public a reading of the ordinance and a hearing and deliberations, discussions, et cetera. So that particular issue will have plenty of time to be raised and addressed. And of course, at the end of the day, this board can say yay or nay in terms of whether its requirements for adoption have been met or not with respect to the county ordinance that would be voted on by this board. And so I'm not sure there's a good place to insert some additional process or really whether it's necessary at this point. In terms of a report about the status of where things are, if the board wants to hear from Ms. McKinney or Mark Rust, who's the primary planner, and I'm sure they can find some time to come over and discuss it with you about kind of where things are, maybe once the Planning Commission wraps up.
Okay, then I'll ask the board, is that something we would like is for Mr. Rust or Ms. McKinney to come and just give us a status on what is happening with the residential land supply? Or should we consider what Mr. Clark just gave us a report back?
Could be, and as I said, that the planning commissions are both deliberating, will be making a recommendation, and it may be a matter of scheduling something before the board once the planning commission is finished with its job to sort of see where things lie.
So timing may be more appropriate to wait and see what is happening at the planning commission.
Could be.
Okay.
If I can ask a clarifying question, is the planning commission's being asked to do 2 separate approvals, or is it a single approval of Envision Eugene? Are they separating residential from employment?
Yeah, in terms of the documentation that's in front of both planning commissions, there are 2 separate ordinances, one that deals with residential, one that deals with the employment and industrial lands, both of which will come are in front of both planning commissions that will come to this board as well as the city council. So yeah, it's not one ordinance, but at least both issues, residential and employment, will be before the board, if that makes sense. And 2 separate ordinances, but they're both coming here.
I think this bears further discussion because at what point was it changed from a single ordinance to 2 ordinances? Initially, Envision Eugene was moving forward with 3 at the same time, and commercial was dropped from it. And then it was a single consideration of industrial and residential.
Yeah, I don't know exactly when that separation took place. It was really before I got involved in more of the details. The notebook that's available publicly, and the documents available publicly, including the notebook on my desk, contain both ordinances. So in terms of what's in front of the Planning Commission now, it's set up that way with two different ordinances.
And that's in front of both planning commissions.
Right.
Well, this does bear further discussion because we're all suffering from the ill effects of the cost of housing. And I personally pay pretty close attention to how much it costs people to get into a house, whether it's a rental or a residence. And there are people out there who would contend that the fact that we have a very limited supply of buildable land inside of the metropolitan area, particularly this side of the freeway, is driving up the cost of housing. It's making it more expensive and, in fact, putting people out of housing. So, it's urgent, it's imminent, and it's something that needs to be discussed, not just for the land use element of it, but for the social element of it, the social fact that people are being placed out of housing. And there are people out there, a lot of folks suggest that it's because we don't have enough land. I'm not here to say that is the cause or not the cause, but it's something that we do need to consider as a county, because the people that we're talking about are families with kids in school. If you go out to Willamette High School, for instance, and you would be alarmed at the number of kids who get up in the morning in a homelessness situation and go to school and try to complete their education because their families cannot afford adequate housing. And it's not people who have chosen the lifestyle, it's people who have been forced into the lifestyle of homelessness. So it's something that is all a part of the big picture. And so I do believe we do need to have a discussion of how Envision Eugene is moving forward, in particular with the residential side, at some point in the very near future.
I fully agree that discussion in front of this board is warranted. I do remember early on in the discussions there was some talk amongst the staffs that maybe the board didn't need to weigh in on the residential piece because the request from the city didn't involve an expansion of the UGB boundary for residential purposes. And our opinion was, I think you're establishing the UGB, and because of that establishment, I think this board needs to weigh in on that, even if it's not proposing to add anything to what's there already. This is the Senate bill, was it 337, I think?
3337.
Yeah, 3337. Process. That's the first time Eugene is establishing its UGB, and so I think it's appropriate for the board to weigh in on both those.
And I would agree with that assessment, particularly in light of the fact that we are, as well as the county commission, we are the Board of Health. And economics and housing and inadequate substandard housing affecting families, kids, is a matter for the Board of Health. And so if there is something that is happening with a jurisdiction that is causing, exacerbating the homelessness situation, then it is something that we need to consider beyond the urban growth boundary issue. So I'd like to suggest that we do, I'd ask for head nods on a work session on discussion of residential lands. Commissioner Lakin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Andy, do we have an idea, or Steve, maybe you can answer this, either one, but do we have an idea of when the City of Eugene plans on, as far as their schedule is concerned, do we know when the plan is that the Envision Eugene will be brought before the City Council to have that conversation and then ultimately a vote?
We have I believe there's a joint elected official meeting with the City Council and the Board of Commissioners scheduled for June 6th.
June 6th.
On Envision Eugene.
That's helpful. So that's a joint elected public hearing or just a work session?
I don't recall. I think that the process, unlike with Springfield, I think the process is going to be first reading, set a second reading, have a hearing, do it sort of a traditional way. So I'm not sure if the first one is a work session or a public reading, or a first reading. In terms of Commissioner Chair Farr's request or perhaps motion, maybe it makes sense to sort of have kind of a report back from the planners if you want to know sort of dates about what sort of meetings you could fit in where in terms of the timeline that's there, whether it makes sense to have a work session before the first joint session or not. May depend on where the dates fall. So, and I don't know exactly when those are.
And this is before the Planning Commission currently, is that correct? Is this and I'm going to make an assumption here that probably Mr. McMahon has gone before the Planning Commission, bringing forth the same issue, the lot-specific issue, before the Planning Commission as well. So I have to suggest that they're looking into this as well. Our own Planning Commission, I would hope that they're looking into, as well as hopefully the cities as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Certainly. Mark Russ, one of the principal planner working on this, is actually waiting to hear from me on some other elements where he wanted me to weigh in on some issues in front of the Planning Commission because he's putting together his memo for their deliberations, and that's one of the issues we've already talked about that's in his stuff. So yeah, it'll be discussed.
And I'm glad you brought up, because I think you're correct, absolutely correct. In fact, on the legal side, this is the first time establishing a separate new urban growth boundary. It used to be one contiguous around both cities, and now it's establishing. So guess what? Eugene and Springfield are the same as North Bend and Coos Bay. You're separated, except they're separated by a sign. We're separated by a freeway, a little bit larger, but it's the same thing. Both
We're
have,
separated by culture.
They're that.
Bulldogs and pirates.
And Coos Bay and North Bend, yes, culture, and Eugene Springfield, culture. Yeah, about the same thing. So anyway, so I think that that's appropriate. So I was just trying to get an idea as far as the schedule's concerned, because I do believe that we need to be engaged, and I think legally would support, because it's establishing a new urban growth boundary, that ultimately we will have to co-adopt before it goes to DLCD to be signed off. So, all right, thank you.
So then Ms. Mulgrew.
I just was going to further clarify. It looks like we have a work session scheduled June 6th. So what you may want to consider is, as Mr. Clark suggested, a report back from staff in advance of the June 6th.
That would be helpful.
Meaning if we already have a work session scheduled for June 6th, that's where maybe the board can get into a more in-depth discussion. But in advance of that meeting, we could come back and have staff present sort of the schedule timeline. Legal authority and options was the other thing I heard this morning that the board may have available to it. So you have that information in advance of the work session on the 6th.
Then would May 9th be give sufficient time to prepare a report back? That's 2 weeks from today.
I would assume so, although I'd be speaking for the Land Management Division, and Lydia doesn't like it when I do that. And I'm not sure what the board meetings there are between now and the 6th.
We have the 2nd, the 6th, and then the 2nd, the 9th, and the 16th.
16th may be a better one, if that makes sense, just because I want to give them time to work through the Planning Commission process and be able to give you a better report of where things are.
Then let's just throw it up May 16th, if I have head nods on that, for a report back on the Envision Eugene process and what's before our Planning Commission, and what are the decision points by the County Commission. At what point will we be weighing in on the subsequent process?
And my understanding, what the board wants to see is sort of a brief memo of sort of the dates, timelines, and where the decision points will be in that, rather than an exhaustive analysis.
And everybody should be prepared, I'll say it again, for me to discuss the social element of the lack of available building land for residences, whether it be single family or multiple family residences.
And that's obviously a bigger discussion than could happen in May, but through the whole process, I think that's one of the big tensions with these sorts of land use actions, is you've got the land use law that talks about, the last place you want to expand is onto nice flat farmland. Well, that's the cheapest place to expand to, or you can put up cheap houses. So there's always that tension.
Or you can go on 9% slope.
Yeah, this instance is no different, so yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Thank you for the clarification, and did a good job of pinch-hitting. And thank you, Ms. Mokrajewski. The second item from this morning was on Eugene Ordinance 4.816, and that is it is their camping ordinance, which allows for backyard, essentially backyard and parking lot camping, parking lots in churches and businesses. It allows for a fixed number of temporary housing units, trailers, etc. You see them around town. You see them in lots of churches have them in the parking lot. Sometimes there's a Conestoga hut. Sometimes it's a trailer or a camper. Sometimes it's a bus, but it's sanctioned by the city of Eugene, and there are very strict rules regarding how they can be established, sanitation rules in particular. So the discussion there would be a discussion. Would it be a report back or a work session on county adoption of a similar set of rules concerning backyard and parking lot camping?
I think it feels like a report back, Mr. Chair, where we would do some analysis of that ordinance and options and constraints that exist.
Very good. So a report back. And is that something that I could ask for by May 9th? I have to have head nods first. But.
It sounds to me like that would be more work for the Land Management Division. They've got a lot on their plate right now, as you know, and this board controls sort of the priority levels. I anticipate the answer to the issues raised is going to have to do with, what is the land zoned in the UGB and what's allowed there and what's not and for how long.
Sure.
And so that may take some time to analyze what's out there.
There's a pretty intense body of work that took place in 1997 through about 2001 that came up with that. And it was regarding lands that are immediately adjacent to the lands that we're talking about. But perhaps my request on Mr. Mokrajewski would be to check with Land Management, see when they can get a report back regarding how easy or complex it would be to adopt a similar ordinance.
And Mr. Chair, I would offer, I received an email from the Eugene City Manager earlier today as a heads up that the Eugene City Council's work session tomorrow, the topic is public shelter for emergency housing, and they wanted us to know because they understand that the county is involved in support of the Poverty and Homelessness Board efforts and interested in that topic. So I share that as an FYI, but also that it is really connected to this overall issue of resources available for homeless individuals in our community. So that may be. There's that conversation that's happening. I also think that as we've, really been focused on our strategic plan, and as part of that, where our priorities are, the Poverty and Homelessness Board has developed a strategic plan. I know emergency shelter is on there, and these temporary strategies are part of that. I think that hopefully will also be part of this overall conversation, that as we look at existing laws that are in place or the board's contemplation of future laws, that you're also considering how that fits in with the board's strategic plan and the Poverty and Homelessness Board's strategic plan. So we're focused on the things we believe are going to have the greatest impact.
Thank you for that. And the coordination of efforts is imperative. If we're moving forward in a separate fashion, odds are we'll be getting in each other's way. So that is important. And a reminder that the Poverty and Homelessness Board does have a subcommittee on supportive housing and shelter, which Mayor Lucy Vinnis is a member of that subcommittee. So, good. Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So one of the things, though, that we want to make sure about, because I think we really appreciated Ms. Mulholland coming in and providing public testimony this morning. She obviously is passionate, is interested, cares, and, I think we would all agree that it's nice to have people in the community who feel that way and are not coming here being dogmatic, but are coming here and say, hey, what about this? What about this? And so as long as we keep these folks engaged and are really interested, as long as, if we're going to have a report back, as long as when folks come to us and have this thought that obviously has spurred thoughts within the board, that, they won't feel frustrated. Well, gee, they just, that's a little letter and that was the end of it. And gosh, I guess so much for my idea. Maybe it's the right idea, maybe it's not. And I don't know, but I like the idea of making sure, but also just continuing to reach out to folks like this and saying, hey, gosh, really appreciate your thoughts and ideas here. And because who knows? I mean, that's how we get things done. A lot of times it's just someone comes up with just a simple idea, and the rest of us are trying to, make it into as we're trying to, fly to Mars. And it ends up being it's as simple as just an idea coming from a person just saying, hey, what about this? So I just to because I got to tell you, I was really, it's impressive when somebody wants to take that kind of time and come here and say, what about this? And so let's just make sure that when we hear from citizens that they'll remain engaged. And it's probably, Commissioner Farr, I know that you do that quite well in reaching out to folks. And so I'm sure you'll probably reach out to her as well. But that's just important, I think, when people are willing to take the time to do that.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Lycan. And we may in fact find conditions exist in the county that preclude such an
Absolutely.
effort. Or we may find that it's so easy that why didn't we do it before? So very good.
So, Mr. Chair, just on that, I guess I'd like to get some clarification. Do you still want to report back? Do you want this to go to the subcommittee of the Poverty and Homelessness Board for discussion and then for it to come to, just trying to think of the best path given
My specific request to you was to check with folks in land use to see if they could prepare, how it would fit into their calendar to prepare a report back. The Poverty and Homelessness Board subcommittee meets on May 10th, and it will be on the agenda of that subcommittee. Okay. So, okay. I happen to be the chair of that subcommittee, so. Okay, so is that clear then? Just
I think so. And
okay.
so there's head nods for a report back on, we'll have to, again, work with, in terms of workload, talk to land management about ability to rescind. I don't know what all is going to be involved in that review and analysis and report back, but.
No specific timing on that.
Okay.
All right, very good. Well, thank you. Thanks again, Mr. Clark. Any further agenda team requests? Okay, then we'll move along to a review of assignments.
So we have those two, the report back for May 16th on Envision Eugene, and particularly the schedule and steps available related to the parcel-specific inventory request. Second item, an undetermined date for a report back on review of, I had ordinance 4.816. And allowing overnight camping outside of city limits. And then third was the request for a board order on next week's consent calendar to participate in the Oregon Biological Opinion issue.
Okay. Okay. That sounds complete. Thank you, Ms. Mokoransky. Then we have concluded our need for executive session today. Any further business? Seeing none, we're adjourned.